Hi, welcome to the Neshamos podcast. We at Neshamos are on a mission to promote mental and emotional health within our community. Among the many ways we do this is by empowerment through education. This podcast is where we get to listen to personal experiences of those who have been affected by mental illness, the pain, the struggle to get better, and today, by the grace of God, have emerged with a message of hope and healing. My name is Moshe Chanan. I am a grateful addict in recovery, and I am a certified life and addiction recovery coach. I'm here to encourage vulnerability and allow for hope to emerge from the internal journeys we share. Please join me, hear the stories of these heroes, and know that you are not alone. Welcome back, everybody, to the Neshamos podcast. Today we have a guest by the name of Khayim Gutlazer. His family and ours has go back for many years, and I've gotten to meet Chaim on a much deeper level only not too long ago, but very quickly. Again, like a few others that I've met, I realized that this is a story that people need to hear. It's truly inspirational, and so Chaim is going to share with us a little bit about his story. There's just isn't enough time to get into all of it, so he's going to share with us what it was like, younger, being a survivor of being bullied, and growing up here in Crown Heights, and how he eventually used his experience to enter into grief recovery and become the youngest person to ever become a certified grief recovery specialist. So without further ado, welcome, Chaim.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Chaim, can we start off by just sharing with people, like, why are you doing this?
Well, I always thought that if one person heard this and got inspired or thought that they relate to my story even just a little bit and it affected their lives, that just means the world to me.
Do you not have any fears that people are going to look at you differently now?
I do, but at the same time, it's not what bothers me because it's about what helps other people.
It's very powerful. So
Thank you.
I acknowledge the risk that you're taking and the vulnerability that you're offering to all of us, and it's so appreciated. So
My
thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you and your family. So can you just invite the listeners into a little bit about what it was like for you in your early days?
Well, I grew up in a family of nine. I have seven older brothers, one younger sister, me being the youngest boy out of all the eight. I had a difficult time at school. I was bullied very often. I was very lonely. And yeah, that's pretty much how it went.
Can you tell us a little bit if there's anything that you can share with us in regards to what the bullying was like? Because bullying is a big word.
There was a lot of verbal bullying, a lot of physical bullying. Um, and yeah, it was very difficult growing up in a bullying atmosphere because I became alone throughout that whole time because I felt that everyone was out to get me and I was lost and I didn't know who to talk to, didn't
Mm.
know if I should talk to someone. And I was alone a lot of the time because of that.
Can you break down for us the difference between the pain of the actual experience and then the pain of being alone in that?
At most times, I don't really think that the physical or verbal bullying hurt me as much as the aftermath of it, of being alone, not knowing what to do, locking myself in my room, putting on loud music just to run away from my emotions, my fears,
Mm.
and creating this fantasy world that I'm fine. I'm
Mhm.
actually a liked person.
Did anybody notice that something was going on?
At times, yeah. When I grew up, my mother called me the boy who never smiled. I didn't really smile growing up a lot. I was not really happy. I was fighting a lot of tears, a lot of emotions.
Is there anything you have to say to somebody who's feeling that alone feeling?
Yeah, you're not alone. There are people that care about you. Sometimes it takes time to find that person, but when you find that person, just open up because it's a life-changing experience to just get it all out. Share your emotions. Sometimes you may feel like you're the only person with that emotion, but you're not, and someone else could help you. All you have to do is open up.
For somebody who, if I can put myself in the shoes of somebody who's in that position and hears that, it's so difficult though. I'm so scared. I can't do it. I don't have anybody. Like where to even start? Like I know even for me in my story, like I didn't even realize. I knew that. I don't know if I even knew that it was not okay with the way I was feeling. But when I look back, I don't recall there ever being like some sort of opening in my life to a person, to an experience that would allow me to like, okay, if I step into this, I'll be okay. So I wonder if there's a step before taking a step.
I would say for sure, look at yourself very, very thoroughly. Look at your life and look what's going to come if you keep it closed off. That was one of my biggest fears growing up, that I would always be this way and I
Mm.
would never change, and I would just be that kid who's sitting in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And that frightened me because that's not who I want to be. It's
Mm.
not who I wanted to be.
Wow. Um, can you bring us into as you were growing up a little bit more, maybe elementary, if there's anything you can share with us?
Well, as I said before, I was bullied by the students. And so at some point in elementary, a teacher came over to me and he told me that I don't belong here. I should find another place because I obviously don't fit in with my class. Um, in some words, he kind of called me stupid. And that broke me as a person. I never felt so broken in my life because you don't see that coming from an authority figure. I saw that coming from a student, I saw that coming from a friend, but I never saw it coming from an authority figure. And when that happened, I got crushed. It hurt so bad that a few weeks later, I just looked into the mirror and I just asked myself, are you happy? And I knew that if I said yes, I would 100% be lying. But if I said no, that means there's an issue. And I don't want an issue. And it just ate me up inside that I just wasn't happy. I didn't see anything further for me. I didn't see so much of a future because I was just so broken and hurting inside. Also, not to mention alone, not telling people about it.
Mm.
And when that happened, I told my parents about it. And my
How long?
parents are loving.
How long did it take for you to actually tell your parents?
2 days. I think it was
Wow.
that day, actually.
Okay.
Might have been that day.
Okay. Amazing. Amazing.
And I remember I went to them and I was like, this teacher kind of called me stupid. And I told them the whole story. And they just looked at me like, no teacher says that to a student. I mean, what parent would believe a child who says that? I mean, I wouldn't believe my child if he said that because what teacher would do that? It doesn't make sense. And they came down to the school and they met him and they realized that he's the type of guy to say that. And it was such a difficult experience for me because I felt so broken because at first my parents didn't believe me. And it hurt. It hurts when you tell someone a hurtful thing that happened to you and they just go, "It doesn't make sense." They just look at you and say, "It doesn't make sense."
What did it mean to you that they actually took action and went down to the school?
Nothing really. I didn't see it as such a big thing. It was more of, "I'm not going to school. You're gonna have to fix it."
Hmm.
So
But by you telling your parents that, was that like you signing off and like letting go of the school? Like that
yeah,
was yours basically saying, I'm never going back there.
that was me saying that I emotionally can't go back there. I couldn't face that again. Just going back there with my parents and looking that teacher in the eyes again was so painful.
Hmm.
Just those words really affected me.
In that process, was there any source of validation or anything like that as a result of that process?
It made me believe my doubts. Most people doubt that they're not the best and there's some issues. And I was doubting myself throughout my childhood that I'm not perfect. I'm not who I want to be. I'm not anything. And I don't have anything in the future for me. So it kind of just validated this false belief I had that I'm stupid.
Was that even though your parents showed up for you? And
Yeah,
like,
because it was the words. Those words, you don't say that to someone who's that young. And I felt just so crushed.
Hmm.
It really crushed me.
What happened as a result of that meeting with your parents and the teacher?
I left school. I had to leave that school. And it was really difficult because I was alone at home. And I had so many issues already that I was just being alone.
What do you have any idea what the conversation was? Like, did the teacher admit
I wasn't
of
there.
what he did? Ah, okay.
All I know is my father walked in and kind of said, it happened.
Okay. So he must have admitted it. And was it decision that your parents made that this is not the place for you? Or it was something that you already decided and
I think they knew that I already decided in my own head that there's no way I'm going back. So they were just like, okay.
wow, did that mean anything to you?
It showed that they cared a little bit because obviously I thought my parents would not be like, you have to go to school. Doesn't matter if you got bullied by a teacher, just go. But they actually showed support and caring
Hmm.
for me. And yeah,
And can you describe a little bit of what it was like after that at home?
there were some very, very difficult times. One story sticks out. My parents were actually planning a trip and I let out a cry for help. I was in such a dark place in my life. And my mother actually ended up staying from that trip and being there for me. And I remember just feeling like someone really cares. And that's one of the greatest feelings I ever had. That knowing that one person cares, even though it was a family member, it was someone cares about me.
Hmm. Did it have to do anything with the buildup of their trip, which there was a sacrifice there?
Yeah, 100%.
Can you tell me about that?
But it was a pretty big trip for them, and I know they wanted to go on that trip, and I know how much it meant to them to go.
Hmm.
And just my mother staying there was so great because it was like I matter. And I had this validation finally that I mattered. I was always getting validated negatively.
Mm,
And this was one of the first times I was validated appropriately. Like someone cares for me and I matter.
that's a big deal. Um, how long did you stay at home? Like, what was that like? Like for that extended period.
I had a tutor come to me, teach me Hebrew studies. I had one come teach English studies, which actually is your brother-in-law, Shua Polanski, who was one of the most incredible people I've ever met. Always warm, welcoming, and really showed me who I want to be growing up. And it was incredible. And he actually followed me when I went to Darchai Menachem.
What do you mean by followed you?
He tutored me for
Continue tutoring.
he tutored me for an hour a day in Darchai Menachem,
What did he tutor?
secular studies, English, math.
Was it more than just studying?
It was a lot of talking about life because I didn't have a lot of people to talk to, so it was amazing just talking to him. I believe he was studying psychology,
Yeah,
and he was just giving me all these tips and advice and stuff about life, which were so incredible.
that's amazing. No, I'm just thinking. I miss him too. I miss him. Um, just gonna let myself feel that for a second. Can you tell me about what it was like at Darchai Menachem?
It was a very welcoming and open school. It was amazing to be there. They had 4 people per teacher at the time. So it was very you got the attention you needed,
Mm,
which I never had growing up. So it was so refreshing. It was amazing. I ran into some difficulties there, obviously. Um, I wasn't the best at times. We all make mistakes. I failed a few times, and the way they dealt with situations were so amazing. I had a lot of anger growing up, and one time I just got really mad. I don't remember if it was at the teacher or something like that, but they just told me, "Go home, relax. When you feel calm, come back." And I was like, "What? What just happened?"
meaning you're not rejecting me and kicking me out.
Yeah,
You're
like,
telling me you're giving space for my anger.
"Yeah, you're letting me be myself. What's wrong with you?" And it was one of the most incredible things. I went home. Think it was 2 days, calmed down, went back to school like nothing ever happened, and they were just so welcoming with it. Like they understood me, and it was an amazing feeling.
Wow, these are special people, special moments. I
They had
just want to
incredible
recognize that.
staff there, 100%. It was amazing.
After that, you did mention to me earlier before we started recording that, you tried out a few other schools after that and nothing really worked out. Um, can you tell me anything about what you took with you from Darchai Menachem?
Well, where are you heading at this? Um,
I'm just wondering what are messages that you got through your experience
it
there.
wasn't so big though. Not really nothing.
It's fine. It's fine.
Kind of just, yeah.
So let's go back a little bit. Um, you ended up at a certain point applying to two yeshivas that you felt were the right place for you. One was the JETS program in California, and the other one was Wilkes-Barre. Can you just tell us a little bit about what that experience was like?
So I applied to Jets and they were hesitant to accept me because I had been to a few schools. And during that time, my brother Shalom was in Wilkes-Barre. I'm very close to my brother. He's been my best friend growing up, always there for me. Anytime I ever have an issue, I could call him. He's so welcoming to talk to me and just hearing me out and helping me. And he said that I should really try Wilkes-Barre out. So I was like, you know what? Judge hasn't responded to me. I'm going to go to Wilkes-Barre. So I went to Wilkes-Barre. I had a wonderful time there. And on the bus back, I got a text from my father saying, Judge accepted you. And I remember I was so lost. I didn't know what to do. I came home. I went to one of the only like religious people that I was close to. And I said, what do I do? I have these two amazing places. He's like, Chaim, right to the Rebbe. I was like, didn't really stick out to me as much. It wasn't something that was like, oh, I should do it. And he said, what happens? Worst comes to worst, you write to the Rebbe. We open the Igris and we don't get an answer. I was like, you're right. Worst comes to worst, I just don't get an answer. And I went to the L and the Rebbe told me in the answer, there are two people holding a talis. And this is setting in Mara. I don't remember exactly where. And if one has 75%, that person gets 75% and the other person gets 25. And I was like, what does this have to do? And he's like, pros and cons list. And I was like, okay, no, that's too far fetched. It never works. It's not gonna happen. And I sat down, I wrote the list, and Jets won. And I was just like, that's it, I'm going to Jets. And I went back to the guy and I told him, I'm going to Jets. And I was all excited. And he was like, let the Rebbe know. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever. Sure. He helped me a little bit. So fine. Went, said, I'm going to California. I'm going to Jets. And I hope to have a great year. And I put it in. And I walk out and I'm passing the video. And the Rebbe is giving $1 to a shliach going to California for shlichus. And he says, Hatzlacha Rabba on your shlichus to California. And I remember just freezing, going, no, it's in my head.
Oh my God, I got chills. That's amazing. It really is. I neglected to mention, but can you tell me about any type of help that you may have gotten throughout those years? Maybe some therapy, any type of mental health professional? Did you speak to anybody?
I did see a psychologist when I was younger. I mean, as I said before, I did not smile often, and my parents were worried. So they have sent me to help. A lot of times I didn't comply with it
Mm,
because I felt like, what's the point in sharing my struggles with some guy with a degree?
mm.
Like, all he has is a piece of paper. What's that going to do?
So that was the beginning and end of it?
It lasted for a little bit of time. I did open up with a few things, a few stuff which I kept locked up, and he did help.
Mm-hmm.
But there were just certain things which I still didn't feel comfortable talking about.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, you mentioned to me that there was something significant that happened once you went to Jets. Can you share with me, like, what happened a little bit before, what happened, and what happened after?
So when I went to Jets, I wasn't at a point in my life where I was 100% happy with myself. I was still struggling with so much, and I literally didn't know who to turn to. I was lost in my own train of thought most days. I was not smiling, and a lot of people would always be like, "Hey, are you okay? How are you doing?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Don't worry about me." And this went on for quite a while until one day your brother, Isaac, sat me down and he said, "Chaim, what's wrong?" And I just got this flashback as the teacher calling me stupid. And I looked at him as a teacher and I was like, I'm not going to tell you. Like, you're an authority figure. I'm not going to tell you. You're the one that's out to get me. And I remember just being so like shooken up. And he was like, he just looked at me and he was like, Chaim, I care. Tell me. It's not something that has to be brought up to anyone else. This is something that if something's bothering you, just tell me. And I just saw in his eyes how sincere he was, how much he cared. And I was like, wow. And I just opened up and I started crying. And I'm not a big crier. And I just told him everything. And he was like, this is amazing. Now it's time to get help. Let's build stuff. Let's do something. And he started working with me.
Can I stop you for 1 second? You had people before. You had Shalom. You had Shua. I'm saying you had people. How did it come to the point where you were again at this place where you weren't opening up?
Because I never really opened up with others.
You're saying you never fully opened up?
Fully. I never fully opened up like that to anyone. Because I mean, even if I'm opening up to people, like right now I'm opening up, but I'm not sharing the full story. So it's kind of the same exact thing that I would open up about a current issue, or I would find another issue that was happening to replace the other issue and talk about it.
Hmm.
As it was the first time where I just said exactly what was bothering me at that moment, at that time, and it was so difficult to open up about.
Hmm.
And I just let it out, and I felt amazing. I never felt like that. I never felt that someone cared that much about me. And I was ready. From that point, I was like, I was ready. I remember I went back into the mirror and I looked up and I said, are you ready to make yourself happy?
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, I'm ready. I'm 100% ready. I'm
Wow.
going to do this.
It's almost like that was really the key. Like all these times you just weren't ready. Just weren't ready.
And it's from then on, it just started building. I went to take a grief recovery course.
Why 1 second.
Oh,
Grief recovery? Why would you get into grief recovery? I don't understand.
well, I have suffered a few losses in my life.
Mm.
And at one of the losses, a grief recovery specialist by the name of Zami Roxon came to me and helped me out through that loss. And I felt so connected to it. And I just remembered saying how if he wasn't there, the way I would have grieved would have been the way I've grieved my whole life, which is locking myself in a room, putting on some metal or something like that in my ears and just being mad, being angry. And this was the first time where I healed properly. And I just said, I do not want anyone ever to grieve this way, the way I grieved. I want people to feel better and I want to help them. And Zami's like, take the course. This is what you want to do. You do it. And I did it. And it was one of the greatest experiences of my life.
Can you tell me anything like just because I have no real understanding of grief recovery. I did hear about this concept of there being 5 stages, and to be clear that these stages are not necessarily in order. Can you just enlighten me in what is special about this type of work?
Well, they first tell you that there are a lot of myths about grieving. One of them happens to be replace the loss with something. A lot of times you see a parent see their kid and the kid goes, I had a terrible day at school. He goes, don't worry, here's a cookie. The kid's happy. But you never actually dealt with the issue.
Was that your experience
No,
working with
it
something
wasn't
like?
mine personally. This is just what they're bringing up in the program.
Hmm.
I did have a lot of these growing up throughout my life. I had all these things happen to me, obviously, but there were so many. There's a lot of myths that you don't know. One of them was don't be strong for others. A lot of times when there's a grievance in a family or a group of friends, someone decides that he's going to be the rock of them, and he becomes the rock and he crushes the hardest because he needs that his pain to be released.
Hmm.
And there were so many myths, and it was amazing. And also, grief isn't only about death, it's about loss of hope, belief, faith, or anything,
Loss. That's the
just
key word,
loss.
right? Loss.
And it opened a new horizon to me of what happened in my life. One of the things they did is they make us write a graph. It's called the loss graph of pretty much very significant stories that happened in our life,
Hmm.
death or loss of faith or anything like that. And I made this whole entire graph, this huge graph, and I started adding them up. And one of them, as I said, were the teacher. That whole story, that was on it. That was a very big part of my life. And I started adding it up and I was like, wait, so this only happened because A, B, and C happened. If A, B, and C was dealt with properly, the rest wouldn't have happened the way it did. And I was like, whoa, I have control. I have control of my own emotions, my own life. If I want to take charge in it and recover and heal, that's up to me.
How did noticing that one thing leads to the other lead you to believe that you do have control? I didn't understand that.
Because I saw that if I would have just recovered properly from the first one, the second one wouldn't have been as bad.
So what can you do now?
So it's by because I never dealt with the situations. I always pushed them aside. And then I realized my life was getting better when I started dealing with the situations. And if I would have dealt with the first situation the way I dealt with the middle one, I wouldn't have had half of those situations.
Hmm.
All it was that recovery that I needed.
So it's like a recovery process and taking the recovery process and applying it to different areas
Yeah.
wherever I want. And that is the control you're talking about, the hope.
Yeah. And another thing which they always say, do not do this at home. They very clearly said, do not do this for anyone, do this for yourself. They gave you a list of questions and they said, tomorrow at 3 p.m., you're dying. Now, here's a few questions. Some of the questions were like the happiest moments in my life, the things I'm most thankful for. And at the end said, here's a letter to your family and friends and whoever else you want to do it to. And I was taking this course very seriously at the time. And I sat down with this piece of paper and pen. And I just got to the point where it was up to a letter about my family and friends. And I remember just thinking how much people have done for me and how much I was so distant from them. And my parents, especially, who always just try to help me and care for me, I pushed them away so much. And the friends who said, hey, are you okay? I pushed them away too. And I just felt so down. It was such a meaningful thing. I was crying the entire time writing it because I took it as I'm dying tomorrow. And what they do is they take you in front of the class and they demonstrate with one of your groups. My group was the one that was picked. And I was so not ready for this. I was ready for my partner in the thing to hear it. And turned out the entire class heard it. So they covered me with a sheet.
Oh my God, that's intense.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh
And
my gosh. Okay.
my partner stood up
Okay.
and read the letter out loud. And for the first time in my entire life, and I mean the first, I was like, what the heck am I doing? Look at this letter. Look what you wanted to do. And you're not dead yet. You have the power to wake up right when this practice is over, call your mother and tell her you love her. Tell the people that you always pushed away how much you were thankful for them. And I was like, this is it. I can do it. And I was like, every single day from now on, I'm going to remember that I am not dead. I am alive and I am doing it. And it started to change my life day by day. And I've rewrote that letter a few times.
Wait a second. I want to know what happened right after that course. Did you call your mother? Because we get inspired. I want to know, like, where did the change actually start? Where did the change happen? You get inspired, but when did you start actually practicing it? Because if somebody hears this and they're super inspired, okay, fine, I'm going to take my life back.
It did take some time, it took a few hours. There was just so much going on in my head. I was overwhelmed by all this emotion, this positive emotion.
Saying just to like process that
To
emotion.
process it and do it. And I remember I called my parents that night and I was just like, thank you. Thank you. I didn't have any words. I remember I thought of a whole speech in my head. And when they answered the phone, I was like, thank you. And from then on, I just started realizing that every single day, I get to fix my own mistakes. As Jordan Peterson says, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not someone else's today, which was one of the biggest lines I lived by. It was, don't look around, don't look what others are doing. Look at yourself. He's very into that. Make the world your oyster, or clean up your house before you criticize the world.
Mhm.
That's Jordan Peterson, and I took that very to heart when I read that from him, because it's me. I'm me. I have my emotions. I do what I want, and if I want, I could recover. If I want, I could lock it up. I could bottle it up. and I started taking actions. You take actions, you do things.
It seems like you're describing a lot of the inspiration, the emotion, but can you tell me more about the actions that you took that were the changes that you were making?
Well, one of them was be more open, be more welcome. One of the
What
things
did you
I
do?
so one of the things I realized were I liked talking to people who are normally happy. Most people like talking to people who look welcoming, look happy. And as I said, I was never happy. I wasn't really happy ever. And I was like, that's it. Now I'm going to express my happiness. I missed out 16 years of happiness. I'm going to start this now. And that's it. I just decided I'm going to start smiling more. I'm going to start doing things. And slowly but surely, my life just started feeling so more relaxed.
Wait, tell me, you got to tell me a little bit more. Like
Well,
what do you mean? You just started, okay, you came out of your room and you started smiling and everybody's looking at you smiling? Like,
no,
no,
that's not. I wish that was how it happened.
no, tell me, please.
Well, I started meditating. I got really into meditation, relaxing myself,
Hmm.
getting some clear headspace, and I just got happy. I decided that I'm going to make myself happy. And
So what's the first thing you do once you make that decision?
you do things that you like. For example, at that time, I was just becoming religious and I love Tanya. And I started off my morning every day with Tanya. And it makes me happy. I learn Tanya with my father every day now. And you could ask him, I get so into it. I love it because the Tanya is really raw. It's very deep. It talks about depression, it talks about happiness, talks about real life problems. It's not some like spiritual thing about two oxes goring cows or something like that. It was real to me and it just made me so happy. And I started talking to more people, caring about other people, listening. Listening was one of the biggest things that had such a change. Listen to other people. Isaac has Five Alive that teaches you to listen. And that was one of the greatest things I did. I was waking up every morning early, an hour earlier.
Can we just describe for anybody who doesn't know what Five Alive is?
Five Alive is a learning method, which was in Jets an hour earlier before Chassidus.
So this is voluntary.
Voluntarily thing, you do not have to do it.
So an hour before Chassidus, what time is Chassidus?
I believe it was 8 o'clock was Chassidus, and
So
we
people
started
are,
at 6:45.
wow, okay.
Yeah, and it's a learning method. So we each get a minute to talk about ourselves or the subject we're learning, and then everyone goes around and we read part of the paragraphs, and then we do word associations. It's a really cool method.
Okay.
But one of the main things they have is after everyone reads a paragraph, everyone gets a minute to talk. It could be about the mimer, it could be about themselves. And the thing is, you can't talk in front of anyone else's minute. While it is someone's minute, you're not allowed to talk. So it taught me how to listen.
Hmm.
And listening to other people opens your mind.
Can you, I don't think we really touched on it much, but if you're saying that you grew up here in Crown Heights in a religious home, and then you're saying later when you're in your late teens, you started becoming religious, what happened between you and God, you and religion throughout this
Well,
process?
after that story with the teacher, I kind of lost most of my faith in God,
Hmm.
most of my beliefs. I kept most of it for my parents' sake. Like I did where I'm around Crown Heights, and I slowly was falling apart. And I actually became religious at the age of 17.
What was your claim to God?
Leaving claim.
Or,
Reasons to be upset?
yeah.
Because it always seemed like wherever I went, I was hitting a dark path. I was either getting bullied by kids to teachers. I felt alone. I had nothing. And it was like, who else to blame but God? I can't blame myself, God forbid.
God forbid. That's hilarious.
um, and it took me a while just to realize that. It's actually a really cool story. I became religious.
I think we have some time if you're willing to share it, at least a short version of it. Not at all.
I'll share it with you after, but
Okay. Um, is there anything you could share on that?
I'm becoming or
Yeah.
I couldn't say 100% that when I became religious, I saw such a change in my life because there was an order in my day. You know, you daven 3 times a day, you learn, and there's halachas and certain things that protect you as a person.
Can
They're
we say,
meant to protect you. And it's so amazing to be part of a community like this.
can we, Was there, not was there, but there must have been some sort of reintroduction. You were like reintroduced to Judaism from another perspective. Can you tell me what the new one was?
It wasn't how it was when I grew up. It was I had amazing teachers in Jets. I could say their names: Levi Blazinski, Isaac Khanin, Zalmi Roxon, Baruch Krinsky. These guys
Sweet
are,
shorts?
to be Schwartz, obviously. They're the most incredible guys ever. They are such a positive energy, and just being around them all day is amazing.
So it's not really even about the religion, it was about how it was given to you.
How it's yeah. When you wanna give someone, it's not like when you wanna give something to someone, it's not like, "Here, take it, shove it in their face." This is more like, "Look, you could be on your own level, do whatever you want, but this is what we're doing." And it's like, they were just so happy about it, and it was so joyful. And I felt like, "Wow,
Yeah, I
this
want
is
in.
where I want my life to be."
Hmm. Um, can you just tell us about what it's like today? Um, what do you do on a daily basis today to maintain this level of, mental health and emotional well-being?
Well, there's obviously a lot of meditation that I do. Um,
What's a lot? An hour a day, or is
no,
it
I don't have an actually set schedule. Um
right? So it's
So yeah, there's meditation obviously involved, and a lot of self work. I mean, every day is a challenge. I will not deny that there hasn't been many challenges since I became. That's not like I became religious and everything became la di da di. Like, no, it's changed to la di da di. It's not like I became religious and everything just became perfect. There's still challenges in my life, even till today. There's so many things that happen, and it's just about my mindset. And I know that I'm gonna get through it, and I'm gonna have a better day. And it's all about the way I see the issue, how I see the issue. Look at the issue as something that you can fix, and know you can fix it. Don't look at it as maybe I can't fix it.
what do you do on a daily basis to give you the power to even do this?
Don't really understand that.
It's okay.
So you want to explain a little more?
Yeah, meaning what is that physical practice that you do that puts you in the state where you can look at yourself and assess yourself?
Got it. One of the things which I for sure recommend to everyone to do is be your own person. Don't look at everyone around you. I am my own person and I will make mistakes. All I have to do is pick up the pieces and start over. Never give up. And that's one of the strong I know everyone says it like, "Oh, never give up, don't do that." But don't give up on yourself. A lot of people give up on themselves and it's heartbreaking to see that.
Is this something that you tell yourself on a
I
daily
tell
basis?
myself almost every day that I have the power and the strength to do it myself. And if it falls apart, I'm going to pick up the pieces. And I'm not going to look to the left and go, he's going to pick up the pieces. I'm not going to look to the right and go, he's going to pick up the pieces. Me, myself, I will pick up the pieces if they fall. And I just have complete trust in Hashem that everything will run smoothly.
Do you do anything today that helps you build your trust or could maintain at least your trust in Hashem?
Yeah. I wear a bracelet that says Trachut Gut, which was made for someone who was really sick. And it was a reminder to say Tehillim. And that's my reminder. Just think good and it will be good. Hashem really takes control of everything. And sometimes it gets difficult to actually believe that. And I'm not going to say I'm perfect. I always believe that Hashem has complete control. But when I do, I always feel more safe,
Hmm,
especially at a
beautiful.
time like this, during the virus and everything like that, knowing that Hashem has control and that I have control and the people around me have their own control is just an amazing feeling.
Were there things that you tried to do as an action of, trying to get the help and trying to do things to get a hold of yourself, um, that you feel like those were the things that just didn't work?
There was a lot that didn't work. For sure, one of them being is I always blamed everything else on other people. I always blamed other people for my fault. And that the only reason I was doing that was because if I took the fault, it was me. I'm the only one in control. And I was so
Right.
scared of that.
And it makes sense. I mean, I'm just thinking it from an objective perspective. You're a little kid and somebody bullies you. Of course, it's not your fault. What do you mean?
So that was something that I took with me through my teenage years of I'm not at fault. The world's against me. And that held me back so much because everyone's just against me and I can't be at fault. It has to be everyone else. And it blocked me off emotionally to me accepting that I could be at fault.
What does
And
being at fault help you? Why?
because then you have the ability to change it. When you have the knowledge, instead of blaming it on someone else,
Wow, it's not really about blame, it's more about responsibility.
100%.
Meaning if it's everybody else's fault, then it means it's in their power to fix it. To say that I'm going to take responsibility is to say I have the power to do something about this and to get better. Wow, that's powerful. Can What was the process of that? Like how have you done it, or can you share about how you do it? Like can you share like a little bit about that?
I was called out. That's actually how I noticed it. Um, I was really called out on it and it was pretty embarrassing. And then I decided that the next thing that happens, I'm going to see if I could take the blame. And to be honest, it did not happen on my first try. It probably happened on the fourth or fifth try that I was actually really at blame for that. And I was like, I'm just going to take it. And I took the blame and I was like, this is what taking responsibility looks like. And this is the person I want to be. I don't want to be someone who's scared of taking responsibility. And slowly but surely, I started building up to become a responsible person. I'm not saying even today that I'm perfect, but I try my hardest. And that's all that matters.
Got it. Thank you. I'm just going to do that because I want to do another question, and the other question is, what is I guess the clinical or the definition of grief? Like if you're saying that grief is not necessarily just about losing somebody, can you tell me about what is the definition of grief if it could be applied to other things?
Well, the grief handbook actually says a really powerful line. It says, grieving is the feeling of reaching out for someone when you need them one more time. They're not there anymore. They're no longer there.
That's very powerful. Because now, okay, based on that definition, it makes sense that throughout COVID, a lot of people are doing the same thing. They're reaching out for maybe a job that they no longer have. They could reach out for a routine,
Or
a
even a person.
gym, or a person, and they're not there. And there's like a process of grief on so many different levels, which a lot of us, or probably most of us, didn't even realize we were going through. That's very powerful.
Obviously, not to mention our prayers and thoughts are with the families who are fighting COVID.
Last message that you would like to share with the listeners.
My last message would for sure be surround yourself by people you love, people who are there to help you grow, because that is the right way to have a healthy life. As for me, I like hanging around guys like Maishi Khan and my brother and his brother Isaac, all these people. And every time I'm around them, I literally grow as a person, and it's an incredible feeling. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I think that speaks a lot to one of the definitions of a support system. It's just spending time and talking to people who build you up, which is the construction of anybody, and especially somebody who there was somebody or people that try to pull them down. That's really, really powerful. So thank you so much, Chaim. It's
Pleasure.
been a real honor sitting in the same room with you and having this conversation. And thank you for coming here.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. It's really great.
Thank you for listening. Please share your feedback by emailing us at podcast@neshamos.org. We hope you'll be back for the next episode of the Neshamos podcast. This is Moshe Chanan wishing you a healthy and a meaningful day.